This will be fun if it's just me for an hour. Hello. I get one viewer and it's not even the viewers I'm supposed to be getting. Nothing against you, but this is supposed to be an improv live stream, so feel free to join. Feel free to learn things. I miss you. I hope you're staying safe. It's been a while. I'm surprised you haven't run and gone to live in the woods by yourself yet. Unless you have. Oh, there's more people trickling in. It's been a day. It's been a day. Yesterday, I stayed up until 5 a.m. to finish an assignment that I sunk like 132 hours into. I have a blister on my thumb. It wasn't worth it. I hate it. I hate it so much, but oh well. And then today, I woke up at like 3, and so I'm a big pro wrestling fan, and I woke up to the news that, so WWE, they have 500 million, dollars worth of shares that they've got. They've got that, and they're deemed an essential business right now for some reason. They're not, but in Florida, and they're gonna make a profit, and yet they decided to fire 50 staff. So I got to watch today as, some of my favorite wrestlers are out of a job. And I'm like, oh, so today hasn't been a good day. We'll see. I'll try and make this live good. Only 2 people in it right now, though, so I'm not gonna do anything yet. But yeah, so for those who don't know, Jonah specifically right now, but for those who don't know, this is my Junior Jellies live. I run a program at the library, or I used to run a program at the library when I was still allowed to, where I taught improv to middle schoolers. And given the current circumstances, I cannot do that properly anymore. Hi, Sue. So I've been running them on lives. Yeah, so today... So the first day we kind of went over basics, went over more basic. Last week I just talked. I don't even remember what I said last week. But this week I wanted to talk about scene painting and maybe a bit of character creation. Oh, don't worry, I was a little early. I honestly just woke up, so I kind of struggled to run out here and start this live. You know, it's been a day. It's been a day. Quarantine is weird. I guess it's not technically quarantine. I can leave, but I can't. Social distancing is weird. So yeah, a rule, I guess it's not a hard and fast rule. There aren't really any hard and fast rules in improv, I don't think, because it's improv, but one thing that I have found works well in improv is when you give detail, because that leaves less up to the imagination, and it gives you and your partner more to work with. So I'm going to be talking first about scene painting, because not only is that a great way to open, if you're not good at opening scenes, it's a great way to set the mood. It's a great way to get a lot of your platform down out of nowhere. Platform is something a lot of people struggle with, so it's a good way to get that down pretty solid. And it's a good way to get details in, because details are something that's really important in improv to make sure your scene isn't vague and to make sure everyone knows where the scene is going and everyone can work together. So, typically when you're doing a scene paint, a lot of people ask for their suggestion, they ask for a location, because you're painting a location, but sometimes you can ask for other things and let your imagination just go wild, I guess. I've seen people ask for a trait or an object, and then they built a location around that. Some of my favorite things are they'll ask for a location, but they'll also ask for an adjective. So one of the more fun ones I've seen was a groovy morgue. it painted a groovy morgue. That was fun. So yeah, so you get your object, you get whatever you're looking for. And then I think an important thing in scene paints is going from broad and then zoning in. So what I mean by that is like kind of set the stage and then zoom in on details. So when I would kind of do that, I'm all over the place today. It's been a day. But when I do scene paints, I kind of start with the atmosphere. I kind of start with the circumstances. So I'll start with if, like, say my location was a farm, I would start with maybe how many acres, like what the farm smells like, what kind of a farm is it? Is it like a dairy farm? Is it a ranch? Is it wheat? I don't know. Is it more agriculture? So I'll start with that, and then I'll zoom in even more. So you start big, and then you go in a step further. So I start with the atmosphere, and then maybe we're focusing in on specifically the barn or specifically the farmhouse. And you paint a couple things about that. Don't just place objects, describe those objects, because details are very important in improv. So instead of just saying, there's a barn over here, I would say, maybe in this case, there is a pristine barn, it's freshly painted, you can tell a lot of care has been put into the upkeep. Like, that already tells you way more about the scene than just saying, there's a barn. And then once you go in more, then you go in more. So then maybe you've got the structure, you got the atmosphere, then maybe go in on objects. So maybe this barn has, I don't know, maybe it's got a bike inside, and you paint the bike, and maybe it's a BMX bike, and it's a little dented, but you can tell it's been loved. Or maybe there's a rocking chair for some reason, and it's missing a few pieces, but there's a toolbox beside it. But then, so that's when you start giving characteristics to this space. You start painting, you start making it come alive, because no matter where you are in the world, people have been through there. Well, I mean, probably not everywhere, but like a lot of places you come through have been inhabited by other people. Like if you go into someone's house, that person has put time and care into their house. Or even like sometimes people leave keys places. Sometimes, I know in my house specifically, people fling the fridge door open, so there's a huge dent in the fridge where it hits the pantry. Like things like that just show that people have lived there. So when you're painting a scene and you're painting objects and you're giving them characteristics and you're putting the time and care into adding details to them, you're inhabiting this world without even putting characters in it. You're making the place you're building have a personality. Like if I was gonna scene paint my room, for example, I would, there are posters all over the walls. They're all crooked. They're fraying and they're kind of bent, but they've been repaired with tape, and you can tell they've been put up multiple times. So like if I paint that means like I've had these posters. I'm a little messy, but like I care and I want to add characteristics to my room. There's laundry all over, but it's in distinct piles. Not sure what those piles are, but there are definitely piles. There are stacks of art supplies. The markers and the pens have been broken into, but there are paints that haven't been opened. Like, just even in that, like, the room has personality, and you can kind of decide things on the characters based on what's been painted. Like, if you think about that room, what kind of person lives in that room? Someone who is very nostalgic, I would say, because it's weird because I'm talking about my own room and I talk to myself, but someone who's nostalgic because they won't get rid of their posters even though they've had to be repaired a bunch of times and they keep putting them up in different places. Someone who is either lazy or gets overwhelmed really easily because there's laundry everywhere that hasn't been dealt with. And someone who wants to try new things but probably is too scared to because they've got a bunch of art supplies, but you can tell they keep going to the same things. Like, and that's, I mean, technically I'm talking about myself, so, I mean, I don't know if those are necessarily things I would say about myself, but based on the scene I painted, like, those are realistic characteristics. that you can give to the character based on what you painted. So yeah, start with atmosphere. What does it feel like? Does it feel spooky? Does it feel claustrophobic? What does it smell like? Use your senses. The building, the enclosure, then you go in. Building, the enclosure you're in. Go into objects, and then I would say, like, you don't always have to, but I personally like to end scene paints with characters. I think it's really fun to paint characters, especially, I mean, I come from a CIG background. I come from a background where it's like very team driven, and there's like 8 of us on stage painting this together, and we need to jump into a scene. So we will paint characters, and then it's easy for someone to just assume the role and get into that scene. So I would then start creating characters and do what I just did when I was assigning traits to myself. So there's 2 ways you can go about adding characters to a scene paint. You can do what I just did, which is take the characteristics of the environment and make those characteristics, like, assign them to a person, or you can do the opposite and you can add a juxtaposition. So if I was using that example of the room paint, maybe the next character I would paint would be like a character based on my mom, who is like super neat and minimalistic and knows what she wants and makes decisions. That's an environment that maybe necessarily they don't fit in, and having that juxtaposition is really fun in scene paints. I feel like not enough people use scene paints as like just a device. I think they're really good to, like I said, they get the platform out of the way pretty easily, but like just with what I've been describing, like, you've got characters, you've got objects, you've painted a scene, so you've built an environment that you can like mime around in, and that's all just from, like, it doesn't even have to take that long. Like, scene paints take like 30 seconds to build, especially if your troop, whoever you're working at, has good attack and they keep jumping in on and building on each other. It only takes like 30 seconds, and you not only have your environment, you've got the atmosphere, you've got objects, you've got the space you're in that you can mime around in, and sometimes you even have characters if you choose to paint them. So I think scene paints and improv are very underused. I feel like more people should do scene paints and improv. I feel like mostly when I see them, they're in ghost paints into scene paint into ghost narration. There we go. That's what they're called. And that's about the only time I see them. Or like people do scene paint in rehearsal and then they'll leave it at that. But I feel like they can be used in open scenes. I feel like they're really good if you're doing long form. They're really good long form openers, because if you build the environment and multiple people are going through it, there's a lot of things you can pull on and a lot of fun you can have. I know it's really cliche, but everyone always says that if you ask them about improv, the first thing they'll say is yes and, because like I think that's the biggest improv cliche that everyone knows. But I mean that's important for all of improv, but I think that's really important for scene paints, especially if you're doing them as a group. Like, if I'm doing one by myself, I'm obviously going to build on what I've said, but if you're doing a scene paint with a group of people, with a team, you can start building other objects, but it's really fun. Like, say if I scene painted a box, and I'm like, there's this chest, and it's old, and it's locked, and then Paul was like, yeah, and the lock is rusted over, you can tell it hasn't been opened in a long time. Like, he's just building onto the object sorry, Paul, for using you, but he's just building onto the object that I painted, but adding more to it, and adding more to the scene. So, I think, again, these lives are just me talking about improv and what I love about improv over and over again. But the best scenes come from teams that trust each other, I think. If you're building a team or you're building a troupe, I'm all over the place. But if you're building a team or you're building a troupe, those starting few weeks of improv, like, yeah, you want to teach the basics, but I think you also just want to build a camaraderie and build a friendship, because to be able to make things up and trust each other and rely on each other on stage, it takes a lot of trust, it takes a lot of vulnerability, and if you want good group mind, you're gonna have to know the people you're working with. So yeah, so I think it's really important to have good friendships, or even not friendships, just good respect and good knowledge of the people you're working with. And going back to scene paints, if you have that energy and that camaraderie, it's so much easier to just jump on other people's ideas and add to them and expand on them and include your own things. And sometimes when you're painting characters and you know the people that you're painting, you can paint specifically for that person. Like if I was painting a character for Paul, I would probably paint something super physical and kind of goofy because Paul is really good at big physicality and goofy characters. If I was painting for Rachel, if I painted a character for you, it'd be like super, like it would be kind of like Harriet, because like you're really good at those positive, supportive moments of insecurity characters, I think, in my opinion. So knowing the people you're improvising with, you can set them up for success, or you can kind of mess with them. I don't want to say set them up for failure, because you never want to purposely mess someone up. But if you're comfortable with the people you're on stage with, you can kind of put them in fun situations and mess with them. Like, if I was doing a scene with Lucas Hayden, I'd make him do push-ups, because I think it'd be funny, and it would maybe mess with him a little bit, but he can do them. Or if you guys were doing a scene with me and you decided to make me rap in a scene, I could do that. Like, it'd probably be awkward in the moment, especially if I haven't warmed up, but like you can do those sort of things and mess with the people you're on stage with, and it adds, when you have that camaraderie and that friendship and that trust in people, you know when is the right time to do that. So again, back to character painting, back to scene painting, you can add traits to the characters that maybe don't fit, and like you trust those people and you know that they can do them, but like make it a joke. Like, I know not all improv is supposed to be funny, but sometimes it's fun to just like, I'm painting for Vicky, make her a big burly wrestler. That's funny, I think. What time is it? I've been going for 15 minutes. It feels like a lot longer. Again, it has been quite the day for me. I think this is the biggest crowd I've had at one time, though, so that's cool. Intimidating, but cool. I don't know how many people are going to stick around for the whole live, or even how many people are actually improvisers, but it's fun to have an audience, even though I can't hear anything any of you say, and it's just me talking to myself. So yeah, to talk about scene painting, but now that we've kind of gone into characters, your characters live and breathe in the scene. They live and die in whatever scene you're in. I know that's really dark, but like it's improv, so most scenes you'll be playing a different character, and at the end of the scene, they die. For all intents and purposes, they do not come back. Thanks, Rachel. That means a lot. So honoring these characters and giving them everything you can in a scene, even if it's a 4-minute scene, I think is important, because not only are you honoring these characters that you've made up, but you're honoring your scene partners by doing the best you can, and it's just best for the scene. So last week we talked about stakes a little bit, but making sure your character has stakes. They have a reason for being in this scene. They have a reason, like they have something they want, something they need. Having those motivations, important. Even if you're a background character, like it's a CIG bit, but to get those extra points for stakes, some kids, even if they're a pillar in the scene, they'll be like, oh, and all I want is to just hold up this house, and it'll be really cheap and very obviously thrown in, but like it's still stakes, and their character's a pillar, but that pillar has a reason for doing what he does. So making sure your character has reasons to do what they do. Status is really important in improv. I think more important than people realize. Or they realize they just can't always attribute or like assign a name to what they're talking about. So what status is exactly what it sounds like. It's who has the highest status in the scene, who has the lowest status in the scene. Who is the high class, everyone listens to them, head bitch in charge, and who is the bullied, beaten down, everyone steps on them kind of thing. And it doesn't have to be that obvious, but like every scene there's going to be a status war, and there's going to be someone with higher status than the other, and it's going to dictate the scene, and it's going to dictate the conflict, and it's going to dictate how things play out. I tend to play a lot of similar characters, which I think once you get experience in improv, everyone starts to know what characters they're kind of good at playing, and they keep playing those. So I play a lot of high status characters. I think it's probably just, more recently I've noticed I play a lot of high status characters, and I think it's because I really want to take care of the people I'm on stage with, and I don't know how to do that yet with a low status character. I want to make sure my teammates, because I think at Improv Jelly I'm one of the more experienced players. I think there are a couple people who have been doing improv a lot longer than me, but despite me being one of the younger members, I've been doing this a long time, and I think I've been doing it the most consistently. Like, there are people who have been doing it off and on throughout their life, but I've been doing this for like 9 years consistently, so I'm in practice. I don't want to say I'm talented, but I think I'm pretty good and solid in scenes. So I want to take care of the people I'm in scenes with. We can learn this from Paul, I think. Yeah. But yeah, so like I want to take care of the people I'm in scenes with, but I don't know how to always do it from a low status. So I try and be a high status, and I try and guide the scene and guide my partners. But also, I mentioned this last time, but a lot of people, how to support with low status characters. Yeah, that's something I need to learn how to do. But yeah, so I talked about this last time, but a lot of people who are new to improv don't understand the fun of losing. So there's always a character in scenes that have to lose. Maybe it's, a lot of times it's the high status character who's an ass and they need to be knocked off their pedestal. So another reason why I like playing high status characters is because I like losing. And I know that a lot of people either don't want to lose, or they don't know how to lose because they're newer, or they don't know that they can lose, I guess. I like playing high status characters. So from a selfish point of view, I love a good story arc, so I want to make sure that story arc is there. So I play low stat or high status characters just so that satisfying arc comes in and I lose and the villain is vanquished. I also like playing high status characters that are like underdogs, because I really like playing kids. I think, and most people in this chat are from Improv Jelly, and they know that I really like playing children, but I like playing children who are intelligent, so they're maybe start as low status but with a big brain, and they kind of do the odds. Anyway, status is important in improv. If everyone's on the same level, that doesn't make for a dynamic scene, and that doesn't make for a satisfying story. Another thing that I struggle a lot with, but is important to character work, is physicalities. Every physicality I have for a character is just me. All my characters stand and move around the world the way I do. But being able to play with physicality, especially for games like Switch Change and other games like that, games like Half-Life, like having a really strong physicality is really important. And I'll like start a scene with a strong physicality, and then about 2 seconds in, I'll forget that I was supposed to be doing that. But so that's something I need to work on. But it really, again, like, it makes for a dynamic story when not everyone is standing the same way, or if someone is in their stunt double. That's a really big one for physicality. But I think it's especially important in Switch Change, just because when you have two such different characters, when that switch and that change happens, it still makes it very clear which character is which. Freeze, I would say that that's more just physicality, because that's the fun of the game, because freezing and then having to justify in those positions is really fun. That's just like being physical with your body. What I mean by physicality is like naturally when I stand, my shoulders are a little hunched, but my hands are on my thighs a lot, and I'll play with that. like stuff about my body. Maybe if I was changing physicality, I'd like hunch over a little more, or I'd stand taller, or like maybe I'd walk with a limp, or maybe I'd walk in like a crab walk for the whole time. Like that kind of physicality that makes the character feel different, I think. Because like embodying another character, absolutely. Because in Freeze, I could be just being my own self, like in my body, but also doing weird kicks, and that's when it says Freeze. And like, yeah, that'll set the next people up for something cool, but I like that was more me being physical than embodying a different physicality, if that makes sense. Another game that it's really important to be like have a really strong physicality for is Tap Out Monologue, because you're all portraying the same character. So if there's a really strong physical and vocal choice that everyone picks up on, it makes for a more, what's the word? Like congruous, that's not a word. It makes for a better story where everything ties together in a bow. Good words, Hayley. Thank you, Hayley. It's, even if you don't say it out loud, treat your character like a real, united front. Thank you, Sue. Even if you don't necessarily say it out loud, your character's a real person, and they have real experiences that they remember in detail, because humans do that. So don't be vague and don't be coy. I hate watching scenes that are between the characters or strangers. Yeah, comprehensive, that one too. Characters that are strangers, and also transaction scenes, because they're boring. There's no detail. It's just like, hey, I'm Joe. I'm Sam. Nice to meet you. What are you up to? Oh, nothing much, just hanging out. What are you up to? Oh, the same. Like, that's boring. Or like going and being like, hey, can I buy a thing? Sure, that's $2. Here's $3. Okay, have $1 back. Bye. That's boring. I mean, I purposely made it a little more dull than they actually probably are, but that's boring. So, your character is a real person, and being able to treat the other people in the scene as real people too is a skill to learn. Like, even if you're, like, pimped is a bad word, ugly sweatered, endowed into being in a transaction scene, instead of making it like a stranger's being like, wow, I haven't seen you since high school and you're still working at this Save-On? That's embarrassing. Wouldn't want to be you. Like, that in itself, it's a little negative, but it sets up like a fun dynamic and like a fun scene, and it sets up, gifted. Yeah, gifted and endowed. Pimped was the word that we were taught like 5 years ago, and then a couple years later, we're like, that's not a good word. But like that, again, back to that example, it's a little negative, but like there's so much history there, there's so much to pull on, there's a dynamic, there's a status there already, and it's so much more fun and more interesting to watch than just being like, hey, how much is the gum? Like, that's boring. I'm sorry if you've ever done a scene like that. We all have. Everyone starts off with scenes like that. Is boring. Another good, I guess now I'm just talking about more things I like in scenes, or more important tips and tricks. I kind of have strayed away from scene painting and character painting. And I guess I'll jump back when I think of things, but, and I had a point and now it's out of my brain. It's been a day. Character painting. Yeah, treating the characters like they matter. Don't be coy, don't be vague, because you might be trying to lead your partner somewhere. Like, if I was in a scene and it's been endowed that my character is married to another character or something, and my character the other character comes in and says, oh honey, I'm home, how was your day? And I'd be like, fine, how do you think it was? Like, I might, and I can endow a lot with my tone, but like just being super vague like that and expecting the other person to know what I'm trying to say is not the best way to go about things, because not everyone can read your mind, and it's confusing for the audience a lot of time. So in that situation, if I wanted to like endow something not good, maybe I would say, be like direct about it. Like, not everyone is that direct in real life, but maybe I'd be like, my day was awful, you didn't do the dishes again, I fell down the stairs because I tripped on your underwear. Like, that's, like, I'm clearly setting up a conflict. I'm being direct, and I don't know why I keep going to negativity. I'm glad none of my junior jellies are in the chat right now. They'd be telling me off, but, like, I feel like you can kind of see where I'm trying to go with this example. Like, being so much more direct, it jumps to the action in the scene a lot quicker and a lot easier. And in a scene, like there is long form improv and I'm less experienced in it, but in short form improv especially, you don't want all those filler parts. You don't have time for those filler parts. It's less interesting if you include those filler parts in your scene. So jump to the action. Don't play coy. Don't play dumb. So say it. Like, even, that's why waffling is a big no-no. Everyone says don't ask questions, because you're just adding filler. You're not committing to anything. You're putting all the work on your partner. And it just makes the scene drawn out and boring and awkward, when instead of being like, oh, so what restaurant do you want to go to? You could be like, man, this new gourmet, like, pizza restaurant opened up, and they serve pizza with toenail clippings on it, but it's really avant-garde. You want to check it out? Like, that's so much more interesting. And it was just nonsense that I pulled out of my brain. But, like, I was so specific that it's something to jump off of, if that makes sense. I'm gonna lose my voice. Oh boy, what time is it? I don't want to sign in. I want to see what time it is. Excuse me. Oh boy, I think I fucked up. I hope this is still going. Is the live still going, or did I mess it up? Just gonna wait for some responses. I think I messed it up. I think I paused it or something. Oh well. I'll just keep talking, and I can download this live, and if people miss things, I can upload it to YouTube. Oh well. Yeah. I've been doing this for half an hour then. I'm back in my dad's office again because it's quiet and I don't have to feel self-conscious about my family listening to me talk to myself. It's cool. Thanks, Rachel. I'm glad everyone can still hear me. Cool. It's a weird time, just in general. So this is the third live I've done. All of them are all over the place and they're all nonsense, but it just feels surreal to be doing improv or talking about improv alone without doing it. I miss people a lot. What else? I don't know. I don't know what else I want to talk about today. Does anyone have any questions? Does anyone have any suggestions of things I should talk about improv-wise? Or just in general? This can be like a fun question and answers portion, because I'm going, it's been a long day. I don't think anyone who's here right now was here at the top of the live, but I was up very late last night. I went to bed at 5 a.m. trying to finish my final project. Was not worth it. I hate my project with a passion, but I did it. And then I woke up this morning, and I'm a big pro wrestling fan, but I woke up to see like 50 people got laid off, and a lot of them were like some of my favorite superstars. So it's been a day. Woo. So I don't know. It's a weird time to live in. I mean, in the end of the day, I'm very fortunate, but also, like, mental health has been a challenge, especially because, like, I can't really go to my therapist right now, which is fun. This is gonna get a little TMI, but I feel like talking about mental health is important. Being open about mental health is important because it makes people feel like they're less alone, and it gives me an outlet to talk, so I'm going to talk about it. But I have borderline personality disorder, which sounds a lot scarier than it actually is. It's just my brain being mean to me. So basically, what I kind of describe it as is my brain is my biggest cheerleader and my biggest saboteur all at once. So if I was going to put that in context with like improv, for example, in the same rehearsal, in the same minutes, one half of my brain will be thinking, you're really talented, you're good at this, you know what you're doing. Everyone is lucky to have you here. Maybe not to that extent, but... And then the other half of my brain is like, you're taking up too much time, you're hogging the stage, you are making this all about you, and you're being cocky and putting everyone else down. And maybe that's not necessarily the case, maybe that's not true, but that's just borderline personality disorder. That's what my brain is. And so part of borderline personality disorder has a lot to do with relationships. And I think, I've had my fair share of traumas, but my therapist and I, we can't really nail down where this stems from, but like a lot of my big issues come with relationships, and like platonic, all kind of relationships. I have like a very traumatizing fear of people ditching me and leaving me, so I get attached to people really, really quickly, and I attach myself onto them, and I think they're the best people in the world, and they're my best friends, and I'm in love with them. And at the same time, my brain's like, you're annoying, you're forcing yourself on people, they don't want to hang out with you, they're just humoring you. And so being like isolated with just my brain saying that has been rough. It's been something else. I'm used to it. I'm used to being in my brain, but it's been really, and like logically I know that like this is a really tough time for everyone, and everyone's kind of in their own head and they're working on themselves, as they should be, because it's a trying time for everyone. But then that little demon on my shoulder is like, none of your relationships would exist if you didn't put the work in to reach out to people, or like, look at all these people who are doing just fine without you, and like that kind of stuff. Now that I've been going to therapy for a while, I can like pinpoint it and like try and talk myself down from it. But like the longer I'm alone, the more I just have myself to listen to, the more myself isn't nice. So yeah, that was a bit of TMI. That was a bit of digging into my mental health. But it's my life, and you're at my will. You have to listen to me, so you're welcome, I guess. I hope everyone's doing well. I hope everyone's safe. Mental health issues aside, I'm very fortunate to be in a pretty safe environment and position, and I know not everyone is, and I really hope that all of you are doing okay and you guys are healthy and safe. And I can't wait to get back together and improvise together again. That will be a happy day when we can all be on stage together again. I've been on for about 40 minutes now. I think I'm going to wrap it up pretty quick. This live has been shorter than my other ones, but again, I've had a funky day. I'm very sleep deprived. I'm sure you could tell by the way my brain is going all over the place. And also it's snowing. Screw that. I hate that. That's just the cherry on top. Of course it's snowing again. I was going to go for a walk today. And now I'm just not, out of spite. Like, it's probably not even that cold, and I could probably go for a walk, but I'm not gonna because it's snowing. How dare it? Yeah, I don't know what I want to talk about next week. I've kind of covered the big bases. Maybe how to structure a story, but I don't want it to I want to make sure it sounds good and applicable for improv, and I don't go off on a tangent for, like, writing or just English. I don't sound like it's an English class, because though they are very similar, I get off on tangents a lot, as I'm sure you all just witness. So maybe next week I'll talk about story structures and how to hit all the right story beats in improv. But after that, who knows? In the spirit of improv, I'm very much improvising these lives, so I have some notes, but I'm really just making things up as I go. I'm excited to see some new faces here. I mean, Sue and Paul and Nicole, you've been like a steady presence in most of my lives. But Rachel, it's very exciting to see you here. You too, Jordan. Joda was here for a while. None of my junior jellies, which is dumb because this is supposed to be for them. Those rascals. I feel like they probably just forget that I do it because they're in middle school. They probably got homework. But I'm gonna pretend to be mad for a minute. Those kids who aren't being good, who are letting me down. Just kidding, they're angels. I love them. Yeah, Sue and I talked a little bit about maybe Hunting being able to sponsor them so they can go to Wildfire Junior next year, which would be really cool if it's possible. But who knows what next year will even look like. I got an email from Improv Camp a month ago, which, like, I should have, that just, it's canceled, so I don't even have to worry about not being hired there because it's not happening, which is, like, an upside and a downside. But yeah. Hi, Keon. You're joining right at the end. But yeah, I hope you guys are all staying safe. I hope you're all staying warm considering it's snowing again, and I'll see you guys next week at 6:30. I'll see a lot of you guys tomorrow, I think, if we do another Improv Jelly conference call, which was very good. I really liked ours last week. But yeah, I'm gonna sign off early tonight. Thank you all for hanging out with me. Oh, nope. There we go.